On today's episode of the Box2box podcast, we have the fifth instalment of the off-season mini-series on the top 5 Premier League players in each position. Today's podcast covers wingers. On to the podcast we go. Hello, and welcome to the next instalment of the off-season mini-series of the Box2box podcast, where we look at the best Premier League player in every position through the history of the Premier League. So far, we've gone through goalkeepers, centre-backs, full-backs and centre midfielders, and on today's episode, we're going to be covering wingers. Once again, I'm joined by Reza. How's it going, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you, mate. How are you?
Good. Getting there. I've had COVID for the last weekend or so, or last few days, so I'm recovering from that. But I'm getting there. Right, mate. So wingers. Let's talk wingers in the Premier League.
Let's talk indeed.
Let's talk. So if anyone hasn't listened before, what myself and Reza do, Reza go first, go from 5 to number 1. I'll go second, 5 to 1, and we'll pick our top 5 wingers in Premier League history. So saying that, Rez, who's number 5?
I mean, I found this hard. I did find this hard, actually. You think of the Premier League. You think there must be loads of really, really top quality wingers. I'm not obviously talking about. I'm excluding the likes of your Bernardo Silvas, for example, who play on the wing but aren't wingers. So I tried to pick a list of actual wingers, and there's a few people that will probably be upset that some people have not made the list. Salah, for example, hasn't made the list. But I think I'm just looking at the impact they had on the team at the moment, at the time. So my number 5, bit of a surprising one perhaps, but it's Mark Overmars.
Mark Overmars, the beast.
He was unbelievable at Arsenal for a while. Obviously the late 90s, I don't know, I think he signed 97, 98, something like that. And straight away you could see he was top quality. And he was one of the players who proved the catalyst for what was Arsenal for a good 8 years, 7-8 years, where they were a really, really, really good quality team. Got up and down the wing well, and I just think that overall his technical ability and his quality always, generally shone through. Mark Overmars.
Very nice.
Number 5.
Mark Overmars at number 5. Did he join Barcelona after Arsenal, or was that before Arsenal?
After,
I thought it was, because I remember I used to play a game down Brighton Marine, a little side story here. Used to get little cards. I don't know if you ever saw it. It's like a football game where you had cards and you used to put it into a machine and you'd play it like a game of FIFA.
no.
It's like, I don't know if you ever saw it. It's down Brighton Marina as well. Me and one of my friends used to do it every single weekend on the Sunday. We used to get a bus down there. You buy a pack of cards for like 2-3 quid in there, and you could just build your own little team. If I ever find the cards, I'll show them. I'll bring them along to you when we go to a quiz on a Sunday. I'll show you them what I'm talking about. You might remember it. But yeah, you'd go there, and basically the only thing you could control was pass and shoot. So you had a pass button, a shoot button. You'd put your players on the positions where they would go. On the once you put them in there, they'd read the card, and then you'd press pass, and your team would pass, and you could, if you wanted to shoot, you could just press shoot at any time. And the higher you got up, the better rewards you got. And I had Overmars on the team every time. But I had his Barcelona card, so that's why. Anyway, yeah. So your number 5 is Overmars.
The number 5, Mark Overmars.
Who's your number 4?
So my number 4 possibly would have been higher had he not been a bit of a prick, but it's Ryan Giggs. Obviously longevity, unbelievable. He obviously, when he lost his pace, he dropped deeper, he dropped into midfield, and he could still ping a pass. I don't think he was as good as people perhaps make him out to be. He was quite a frustrating player. Like growing up, I always remember listening to my dad moaning about Giggs. And how he was quite wasteful. People obviously compared him to George Best. Don't think that's a fair comparison on either of them, really. They're different players. Obviously, career highlight for Giggs was that goal against Arsenal in the 1999 FA Cup semi-final
Yeah.
after Bergkamp missed the pen.
Mhm.
So yeah, but his longevity. I mean, he played until what 40,
Yeah.
which considering I say he started off as a winger is pretty impressive. So yeah, Ryan Giggs, number 4.
Giggs there. Very nice. So give it Giggsy to number 4. Um, who is your number 3? Who's your bronze medal?
Tight one. I'm going to go for Robert Pires.
See, I don't know how
Um,
anyone can have a list without having him in there.
no, I mean it's difficult. I mean, obviously, I'll get to number 2, and then I'll justify why. I'll try and justify why they're 3 and 2. Um, Unbelievable player. I remember the lob against who was it? Us.
Probably was.
Um, Unbelievable. Like just when he was just so graceful. I think I've spoken about it before, like with other players, how he'd like just glide across the pitch. Um, he made everything look so effortless, and for that, I'm putting him in my top 5. Again, I think I mentioned about Mark Overmars. Obviously, Pires was slightly later, but Pires was at what I consider to probably be the best version of Arsenal that we've seen in the Premier League. He was a
Definitely.
big part of that. So yeah, Robert Pires, number 3.
Robert Perez at number 3. Yeah, I can't imagine anyone of sort of mine, your age, possibly even down to your brother, which is about 25, 24, 25, and that remembers sort of the Arsenal Invincibles, can't not have Robert Perez in the list.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I agree.
maybe
I
some of
agree.
the youngsters obviously wouldn't know him, wouldn't know what he was like, but from our
No, and
age,
that's why you get lists like this with like Salah, Sterling, like Mane, and it's like no, like that doesn't. I understand and appreciate that. Again, we were. I'm incredibly grateful to have basically grown up throughout the. I remember the majority of the Premier League era, and I'm
yeah,
grateful for that. I'm a little bit too young to remember the early days. I don't really remember much of it. Um, I remember bits, but it was kind of like 95, 96 when I really started to like stand up and take notice of football. And so yeah, I'm just grateful that I've been able to see people like Pires, and like
yeah.
your Henry's and that as well. Obviously,
That should be quite interesting
yeah,
when we do the striker one.
it will be. Yeah, who's numero uno? But
Numero uno.
anyways,
Yeah.
we'll get onto that later.
Right, so that does
Um,
your bronze medal, Robert Perez.
yep,
Who gets your silver medal?
it's David Beckham.
X.
Yeah, he. Do you know what? I think that a lot of people moan about, like, say that he wasn't technically gifted. I'm sorry, but if you can play a pass like that, you are technically gifted. I know that he didn't necessarily have a turn of pace, but actually, when you look back at his highlights, he did take players on. Yeah, okay, he wasn't a Hazard or a Ronaldo, where he was tricky, but he was very clever. He just literally outside of his right, just knocked the ball, just open up a little bit of space, and then bang. And he could cross a ball from anywhere and hit anything, anyone. Um, he was superb for United, and then he didn't look out of place in a Real Madrid team that included the likes of Figo, Zidane, Ronaldo, and he didn't look out of place. I
No, yeah.
don't think you can say more than that for
Yeah.
someone.
No. I think
Um,
what a lot of people say about Bex as well is that I think a lot of his off the field took away from how good of a footballer he really was.
it did in the early days, but I think that listen, I think that was a lot of that was generated by Ferguson and United fans. Look, yeah, okay. He married a Spice Girl who was like the biggest group in the country at the time. Everyone was like mad for the Spice Girls, and everyone was mad for David Beckham. And as a couple, it just followed them. Celebrity just followed them. Everything followed them. And I think that he's treated unfairly, Beckham. I remember the '98 World Cup, obviously Simeone and the whole red card, and you're like, nah, that's like the way he was treated was horrendous.
Yeah.
And I think that you look at how he is, how he was always was on and off the pitch. He's been an incredible, incredible ambassador for football in general. And even just for that alone, for being what seems like a really genuinely decent human being who cares about people, yeah, he's my number two.
Fair enough. And your number one, I believe I know who the answer is going to be, but please let us know who is your numero uno.
So Maximus.
Saint Maximus. It wouldn't surprise me, mate. Go on, go on. Who is your number one?
Cancelo.
Cancelo. I was waiting for it, to be fair, mate.
Nah, it's Ronaldo, right? CR7, unbelievable. From the moment his debut against Bolton, when he came on
Oh,
and the
yeah.
step overs, and you could see that he was a very raw talent. He needed a lot of developing, but my God, did he develop? Um, his goals. I remember the free kick against Portsmouth, the goal against Porto in the Champions League, the boring, boring ass game where it looked like we were potentially going out or it's at least going to extra time. And he steps up, what was it, 40 yards?
Yeah,
Just
40
smashes it.
yards, my top. And it
Um,
was the thing about that. Me and your brother talk about this goal all the time whenever we talk about good goals, and how that ball was still travelling after it hit the net. Like it didn't stop. It was like picking up speed as it was carrying on. I'll never get it. I don't understand it. How he's be 40 yards out and it's kind of like 70, 80 miles per hour and it's picking up speed.
no, insane, absolutely insane. And we hadn't seen a player quite like him before, and we haven't seen a player quite like him since.
No.
Obviously, there will be at some point. We've had some unbelievable, unbelievable players in the Premier League, but how many players can you look at and honestly say that they are one of the best footballers in the world ever? Not many, and Ronaldo's one of them. So for that, he has to be top of my wingers list. And yeah, everything that he brought to Man United was just incredible. And then again, his goal scoring record at Real Madrid. I know that this is obviously Premier League, but you can't discount it because ultimately that is the player that he was. Um, Obviously, there's a lot of players that I left out of this. Like I mentioned to you before, Gareth Bale, really good player. Like obviously, never forget what he did to Inter Milan, but he just wasn't Ronaldo. And like Eden Hazard, I mean, look at Hazard now. It speaks volumes. Shit. And he was very inconsistent, whereas Ronaldo was on a whole pretty consistent. He played in a United team that was competing with the very, very best at the time. In that Chelsea team that we've mentioned a few times, and obviously Barcelona as well, like the best team that we've probably seen and probably will see in terms of football clubs. So yeah,
Yeah.
Cristiano Ronaldo, number one.
CR7 number one, as he's going to be in a lot of people's lists, whether it's best all time, best winger, best Premier League player ever. It's going to be a lot of lists that he will be put as number one on. But
Yeah.
yeah, nice, very very nice top five there, pal.
Oh, cheers. Right. So, you ready?
I am ready. Yes, I am very ready. Yeah,
Okay.
let's go.
Go on then. Let's have your five.
My number five first. My number five first. Funny enough, is not actually in your list. It's the different. It's actually the only one that's not in your list. It differs, which is like obviously you had Overmars. I went for more someone a bit different. You've already mentioned him, to be fair, and I understand there's one argument that you did give, which I do have to say he wasn't the most consistent ever. But Eden Hazard for me makes my top 5, and he is 5 for me. I always believed he was unbelievable when he was at Chelsea. The He single-handedly carried them to a league title in 1 year. He was just an unbelievable player. The only downside to Hazard, and the reason why he would never be more higher than 5 for me, is how inconsistent he was. You can't go from one season to be like trying to challenge to where some of the players that are higher up on this list are, and then the next season go to Mr. Non-existent. I don't care whether you don't care about the manager, whether you can't be bothered with the manager, or you don't like the manager's tactics or anything like that. If you're the best player in that team, you still perform. Um, he did go away shying a couple of times in a couple of seasons, but for what he did do when he was on, I have to put him in my top 5.
Yeah, I mean, look, when I said, like, I think you touched on it as well, like in terms of the inconsistencies. I put the inconsistencies down to a lack of professionalism. I
I can see
honestly
that with him.
believe that he's not a professional footballer. Like, I was talking to a friend of mine earlier, actually, because when we do strikers, there's someone on the list who I think doesn't get enough credit, and I think part of that is because the potential that they had was never quite realised in the way that people expected it to be realised. And part of that was just literally just it's professionalism. Like Ronaldo became Ronaldo, the Ronaldo that we know, because he was just so driven to be the absolute best that he
That's the
could be.
difference. That's the
And
main difference.
Hazard just never had that. He's natural talent, probably more naturally talented than Ronaldo, but the
There's
attitude, the application.
there's I'd go as far as there's quite a few players that are naturally more gifted than Cristiano Ronaldo, but
Yeah,
they haven't got his work rate, and
no,
they never will. That's the thing. They never will have the same mentality and work rate that he has. That's why they will never be as good as him. Which is the
yeah,
reason why it's fascinating to see him and Messi at the top, where Messi is just pure God-given talent. Obviously, I know Messi works hard as well. I'm not saying he doesn't, but Ronaldo is not as talented as what Messi is, but he's still there with him.
yeah. No, definitely, definitely. So
But
yeah,
yeah,
no, I mean, listen, I accept your number 5. I've got no real complaints.
it's the same
I
reason
think
why
you
I
just
wouldn't put him any higher.
unfulfilled.
I wouldn't put him any higher
Yeah,
for that reason. If he would have been more consistent, and from what I know, I've got friends that are Chelsea fans, and they say that he wasn't the best trainer. So he wouldn't tend to give 110% in training. He tend to muck around a bit. You can't really do it when you're. I get some players look at it and go, right, he's the best player in the team. It doesn't matter as long as he does it on a Saturday. I don't really care. And I have heard certain pros say that as well. They don't really care if they perform on a Saturday. They don't care about the weekdays. But to me, I'd like you to do it all the time. I don't want you to do it just on a game day. I want you to show us what you do in training as well. Because the only way your team gets better is if you're playing at your best all the time. If a couple of you aren't playing at your best, then it just becomes too easy, and then you become too easy, and you become too relaxed. And then when it comes to a weekend, you're too relaxed. That was the only thing that let him down for me. But I can't have I have to put him in my top 5 just for the sheer ability. I used to be scared when we used to play Chelsea about what he was going to do. So he's my number
that's
5.
fair. Cool. Well, number 4 then.
Number 4, as I said you earlier, as you said, he has to be in the list. Robert Pires. That Arsenal team with him. I always get confused. What he was a left winger, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, because it was always because I always got confused because Gary Neville kept taking out fucking Reyes. So I always got confused thinking Reyes was playing that wide left, but probably just Gary Neville clattering into Reyes because he hated him. Um, but yeah, Robert Pires, what a player, or what an absolute player. He did it. He was everything that Arsenal team needed. Arsene Wenger's another one of the French players that Arsene Wenger brought over. Fit in with the squad brilliantly. Was beautiful, technically gifted footballer. Got a goal, got an assist in him. You never really heard about him off the field, which is very rare for footballers. So yeah, he had to make my list, and I just may be very biased that the top 3 that I have are all United, yes, but I just believe that the 3 that are above him are just a bit better than what he is, and probably longevity would be there as well.
Fair enough.
So yeah, he's my
All
number
right.
4.
Yeah. Like I say, I've obviously touched on it. I'll give him my top 5. Yeah, great player, and I'm surprised he's not a little higher. Obviously, I know who your top 3 are going to be. I don't know which order. I know who number 1's going to be. It's number 2 and 3, and it'll be interesting to hear his variations. Like I said, I think part of the reason I could have had him as my number 2, Perez. I thought he was that good. On his day, there haven't been many wingers better than him. So, yeah,
I
but
think I went more
on that,
longevity in the side of things is the reason why he sits
yeah,
at
I
number 4
agree.
for me.
Overmars was the same, right? I put Overmars in. He wasn't at Arsenal for particularly long, maybe 3-4 years, if that. Then he was shipped off to Barcelona. I say shipped off, obviously Barcelona bought him, so he can't be that bad. But yeah, I know what you're saying. So then, right. So the first of the United trio, number 3.
Number 3, Bex is my number 3. Um, everything that you said, the more longevity inside of things, and the fact that he could just slot into a Real Madrid team that had so many star-spangled names is unbelievable for me. I always believe that Bex doesn't get the right plaudits that he should do, just simply because of the fact of that he married Posh Spice, and he was part of that era, and he liked his fashion, he liked doing this, like doing stuff off the field. Just because you're doing that off the field doesn't take away from what he was doing on the field. He won the treble, countless number of Premier League titles, FA Cups, then moved to Real Madrid, one of the biggest clubs, well, probably the biggest club ever. You can't take away from that fact. Unbelievable pass of the ball. Dead ball situations, you wouldn't really count him out. You'd probably put him up there as one of the best ever in terms of dead ball situations. And yeah, it was an unbelievable winger. Would run all day long, would never stop. The only reason I put my number 2 ahead of him is just simply because of longevity, which probably gives away who number 2 is anyway. But
Absolutely does. we'll let you say it anyway. Go for it.
So yeah, so Beck's my number 3. That's the reason why. And then Giggs is ahead of him just simply because of how long he did it for. To have 13 Premier League titles, 2 Champions Leagues, to do it in the Premier League for 22 seasons, I think he was in the Premier League for, and to score in all 22 seasons as well. Absolute ridiculous numbers. I don't think that record is actually going to be beaten. Just given the fact of what a player's lifespan is now, I don't think you're going to get a player playing in the Premier League at the age of sort of 17, 18 and still playing at 40. I just don't think it's going to happen. The Premier League
it's a
is
massive shame that he's a colossal bellend.
Yeah, he is. You're right. I know I can't say that. It's a similar type of situation with when we was doing fullbacks when we had Ashley Cole at number 1. I've just sort of had to look the way of I don't want to judge him for how much of a bellend he is off the pitch. I'll just go by just sheer football ability, and then off the pitch things doesn't come into my brain when I think about football wise. Football wise, he was unbelievable. He was a great winger. And then, like you say, when he moved into further in his career to slot into midfield, he sort of played everywhere really for us. He wasn't really like he'd play 1 minute he'd be on the wing, then he'd be playing in centre midfield, then he'd be in like a cam role, then he'd be like a shadow striker. It was like he didn't really have like a nailed on, but for the majority of the time he was playing on the wing, he was unbelievable. And yeah, he had to be my number 2.
Right, so then, well, we all know who this is going to be, but go on, mate. Give us your number 1.
The GOAT, Cristiano Ronaldo. Any person that comes to me and says they have their top 5 wingers in Premier League history and doesn't have Ronaldo as number 1 is either one reason why they don't say it. Because they're a Liverpool fan, they genuinely believe Mo Salah's best thing since sliced bread. That's the only way I can see anyone saying that Cristiano Ronaldo is not the best winger to ever grace the Premier League. The fact that Salah's done it for 2 seasons and everyone's like, oh, he's unbelievable. I think sort of if you look at Ronaldo, as soon as he came into the league, was taking players on like he was nothing, doing proper winger play, and Salah pretty much based his whole game on Cristiano Ronaldo. So, yeah, Ronaldo is the greatest. In my eyes, Ronaldo's the greatest player to ever walk the earth. So he's always going to be the greatest winger to ever play in the Premier League history. That is anyway.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That is fair.
Yeah, so that covers both our lists. I suppose there is a couple of players we could have mentioned. Gareth Bale, I see you mentioned Gareth Bale. Also Bernardo Silva, obviously, but we're not going to count Bernardo Silva because technically, even though he is a winger, he doesn't really sit on the wing ever. He's normally more inside than outside.
Well, I think this is where obviously football's changed a lot, right?
Yeah.
And this is where it becomes quite difficult because ultimately there aren't many out and out wingers anymore. I say there's not many, there are, but when you look at City in particular, the way they play, I think that obviously, yeah, they play with more attacking midfielders as wingers. So yeah, I think that I can't think of a single winger they've had that I'm like, wow, that is impressive. And obviously with Liverpool, yeah, I think Salah deserves a mention because he has been pretty consistent, contrary to what I believed he would be. He's been unbelievable, but is he as good as the others on our list? I guess there's an argument maybe that he could have slotted at number 5 for both of us,
Yeah.
perhaps. But I don't think he'd get any higher than that.
I think as well, what you've got to look at is how many Premier Leagues are you going to be winning in this? Because you look at the players that we've mentioned, that they've won like countless Premier League titles. I think
Yeah.
Eden Hazard's won what 3 or 4. Perez won what 3, 4, maybe 3 with Arsenal. I think it was. Beckham won about, I think it was about 6 or 7. Giggs won 13, and Ronaldo won 4 or 5. But Ronaldo was just ridiculous. But yeah, so you look at what, and then sort of like what they brought to the team. There's loads of stuff you can go for, really. Salah is an unbelievable player, and I think if he carries on in the next couple of years, I think he's going to have to be at number 5
He's going to be
minimum.
gone after next season, though, isn't he?
Yeah, that's the thing. You got to think that a lot of these players that we're mentioning here, they did it from the start, like at a young age, whereas Salah's come in and he's had his experiences. He's done everything he needs to do, and he's come in Liverpool 26. Like you talk about
25ish, yeah.
Cristiano Ronaldo was 18 years old when he first played for Man United. Like the difference, and Giggs was 17, 16. Bex was the same, 17, 18. Perez was the only one that I can genuinely think wasn't that old when he first played for his team. I can't remember what age Perez was when he first played for Arsenal, but yeah,
Mid to late 20s. So yeah, he was a recognised player. But yeah, no.
Right, that does our top 5
Good
list. Anyone at home listening, please let us know what your top 5 list is. If you agree or disagree with anything myself or Rez says, I don't really care, but we'll say we will for the video's sake. So yeah, please let us know. It's a game of opinions at the end of the day. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. If you like the video and like what you hear, please give us a like. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one.
Speak soon.